Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we'll be hearing from a full-time project manager in engineering who doubles as a prep and lifestyle coach, podcast host of Bikini Things, homeowner, and pug mom. This athlete earned her pro status at her second national show, which was the NPC USAs in 2020, before going on to compete in 3 pro shows back-to-back this year. Welcome to the show, Laura Moore-Shay. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing, Celeste?
I'm awesome. I'm so happy to be talking to you. And when I was prepping your episode, I was like, wait, she did USAs, I did USAs. And I'm so blown away by the people I've had on where I'm like, I didn't even get to meet you or see you.
Small world.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? But I'm so happy to be talking to you. And I want to ask you first the question I ask everybody, which is there anything that you do or a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage?
I think the biggest thing I try to do before I get on stage is calm down and take some deep breaths. First of all, I always try to handle my nerves. I always try to think really positively about how the prep itself went, all the work I put in to get there, and just get really excited to show off my hard work.
Love that. So you are clearly a busy person, and I'm going to get into all your life and hacks and everything because I've talked to your client and mine, Lena, and it's been awesome to learn from her and her experience. And then I got to, like you said earlier, meet Lupe, and we just had so much fun at the event, and they have said amazing things about you. So I definitely want to shine light on those things. But before we get into that, I want to talk about your journey to your pro card, because when I was going through your history, I saw that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it looked like you competed every year, always with a top 5 or higher finish. And I was curious what your feedback was over the years and how you experienced, or maybe how each experience of every year supported you in your successful first national show.
Yeah, that's a great question. And when you say it like that, it sounds like I just crushed it every year that I competed, but that's not actually how it went. So, my first year competing was 2017. My very first show was in February of 2017. And so, yes, I placed 5th in the open class that I did, but there were only 5 competitors. So I got last place Celeste in the open class. So it did nationally qualify me at the time. At the time, top 5 nationally qualified you. And then they went to top 2 for a bit. And now it's back to top 5. I did get second in my novice class at my first show. They didn't have true novice back in 2017. So that at least kind of, gave me a little bit of wind in my sails. Like, okay, second out of a group of novice ladies, that's not bad. And my feedback for the longest time, even now, it's pretty much always the same. I'm 6 feet tall. So when I diet down, I look very thin, especially if you put me next to a 5-0 bikini competitor. That girl is going to look so much more full and shapely than I will look, just with where my starting point was at when I started competing and given how tall I am. So every year my feedback is typically great conditioning, great shape, nice hair and makeup, good job with the posing, get fuller, get bigger, get fuller glutes, fuller shoulders, get fuller. That's what I'm always used to hearing. So I took an off season after my first show. I got my boobs done. So I went into my second show in 2017, really feeling myself, feeling like I'd made some progress. I trained super hard that off season. I put on some good muscle. And then I competed at Muscle Contest Titans Grand Prix. And I got second in my class, but again, there were only 2 competitors in the open class. So I felt, I went away that day kind of feeling like a loser and feeling like all this hard work and emotion I'd put into it was, a little bit of a disappointment. But I decided to do another show about a month later. So I did the Ferrigno in 2017. They don't have that show anymore, but at the time it was a very large show. And that show, there were 15 ladies in class F, which is 5'7" and above. So typically the class F is usually smaller. And in that class of 15, I placed third. So it was the first time that I actually felt like I placed well, because it gave me some perspective of, okay, you're in that top group. The girl who won F class, she won the whole show. She's actually now a bikini pro herself. So she turned pro a year before I did. She actually beat me by 1 place at USA's 2019. Cheyenne Giacomidi, I think is how you say her last name.
Oh,
So,
yeah, she was on the show.
Yeah, so love her, and so yeah, it's so funny how our journeys intersect and intertwine over the years. So that was the first show where I really felt like I did well, and then after that, I switched from my coach, who was a newer coach. He didn't really have much experience with bikini competitors, to prepping with Kim Odo and Body by O, and I've stayed with him since then. And we decided, because my feedback was just more muscle, more size, that I needed to take a long off season. So I took about 9 months off. I came back in 2018. It was my first time winning my class at the Muscle Contest Tournament of Champions and Excalibur. I won my class both shows. I came very close to an overall in both. And again, feedback was the same. Great conditioning, shape, hair, makeup, tan, posing, but more size. So I took a shorter off season and did USA's 2019 the next year. And honestly, Celeste, I was a little bit hesitant to do it, because I felt like I wasn't ready, or I wasn't really sure if I was at the level to earn a pro card. But Kim, he pushed me to do the show, and he felt like, okay, Laura, you've won your class now a few times. You've done very well. We need to try. So we'll give you a short off season. And I didn't really know what to expect. And at USA's 2019, I placed third, which is 1 place from a pro card. So I was I wasn't sure what to expect. And I was actually very, very excited. A lot of people asked me, were you disappointed by that? Did you feel let down that you didn't win your pro card? And I just had no idea what to expect. And I really just wanted to be competitive my first national show. And I absolutely did that. So it motivated me. And with everything that happened in 2020, the original plan was to do Universe. That's typically in July of each year, maybe late June. And with all the shows getting pushed out, I didn't end up doing a prep and doing a show until USA's last year, December. It gave me a really long off season, which I think was so helpful. Mentally, I was once I made the decision to prep, because there was a big part of me that I kind of needed to push again to prep with everything going on. But once I kicked it into gear, I was so motivated, and it was maybe the most positive and most dialed in mentally I've ever been going into the prep. And so that weekend of USA's, I'm really not a superstitious person. I work in engineering. I'm very pragmatic, but something about that weekend, I just felt it. Like I felt it in my bones that it was my time. I felt like it was going to happen. And then, yeah, when it was all said and done and they had me in the middle of the class H group, I was freaking out on the inside, but I had felt it coming. If that, I don't know, doesn't sound too weird.
No, not at all. I actually had it written down to ask you if you felt like it was your time, because people will say like, your time will come, your time will come. But I was curious if you felt like it was your time, and it sounds like you just had a knowing.
It did. And I don't know if that's confidence, if it was just confidence and it was the best I'd ever looked at the time, and feeling like, okay, my physique now is at a point where it's a pro worthy physique, or if there's some type of juju magic going on. But there were just so many coincidences and so many just I don't know, positive things that were happening. And I really I felt it from the inside out, like it was my time. And who knows, maybe that just feeling that way and bringing that confidence is what helped me place the way I did and earn a pro card.
Yeah, that is awesome. I think I mean, I'm sure it's a combination of all those things, and your work obviously paid off and you've grown so much. And I was curious what kept you going year after year, because you were obviously having those moments where like, okay, I'm just placing in these small classes. And then you had that kind of wind under you of like, wow, I actually did really well. Kim Odo, pushed you to say, let's go, let's step on a national stage, but take some time to grow. But what kept you going when 2020 hit and you had that difficulty of getting into that prep mentality?
That's a great question. 2020 was a hard year for everyone in some way. And the gym and training for me, it's something I enjoy so much. So even if competing, the shows were not a thing, I would still keep working out. I would still keep training because I just enjoy it so much. It helps me manage my stress. I love what it does for my body. And so at the end of the day, the training was not the problem. I kept training. I figured out whatever I needed to do. I had my silly little bands and some random dumbbells. And at one point I had a friend who had a barbell and some plates I could borrow and put on my front patio to work out. And I still did all of that. Shifting into the prep mentality was tough, but I think just like anyone, I was definitely very mentally and emotionally affected by what was going on. And there was just so much uncertainty. And I think what helped me flip the switch and just make the decision, because the training was not the question. And in my mind, I knew I wanted to turn pro. And I should back up a little bit, because I think there's a big part of me that I've talked about this or shared it on social media a little bit, but not that much. I think before I even competed, Celeste, I think I knew I wanted to be a bikini pro.
Wow.
And it took me a long time to start verbalizing that that was my goal, but I knew it inside myself. I think I learned about competing from reading Oxygen magazine or Muscle and Fitness Hers back in 2012, 2013, when I was first really getting into lifting. And at that time I was in graduate school. I became a group exercise instructor. I was teaching classes and all this stuff. And I kind of learned what competing was. I had a couple group exercise instructors also at Indiana University with me that were competing, and I saw them do it. I saw their transformations. I thought, wow, that's so cool. I'm enjoying weightlifting so much. And I think it just like planted this little seed in my brain of like, you're going to do this one day. And in anything I do, I want to be the very best at it. I don't like settling for average. I don't like settling for second best. So I think that desire was inside me for a really long time. And I kind of just needed to get on stage and do it to know for sure that it was something I wanted. And so once I did that in 2017, I knew I wanted to turn pro. I just didn't want to talk about it. Um, I didn't want to be a person who talks a big talk, but doesn't follow through with their action. So for a long time, I really kept quiet. I kept it to myself until I really felt like that goal was in my grasp, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Like at first it was your little secret goal that you hoped for and you longed for and you knew was likely going to become your reality if you continued. And then you continued and eventually you saw yourself as that pro enough to actually own it and step into that.
Yeah, and casually mention it once in a while on Instagram, but never.
Right.
If you go back through my posts, I don't think even once you would see hashtag road to pro or hashtag pro card hungry. Like that, just I was very to myself with it. And so 2020, I still knew I wanted to turn pro. I was still training, but it just felt so uncertain. And at the time, actually, right when I started my prep, I was in the process of purchasing my home. And I just kind of thought, I think I was a little bit fearful maybe. And I just thought, okay, I'll come back to it next year, or things need to settle down. And I saw two of my really good friends, Kaylee Hoodie, who's also a bikini pro, and my friend Michelle, who I prep, she's an NPC competitor. They competed during the pandemic, and traveling with them, being with them during the shows, I think it kind of kicked my butt into gear a little bit. And the way that I thought about it when I did have that that shift in my mentality was, Laura, you just placed third at USAs last year. That's one place away. You're the contender. You're one of the top contenders for a pro card in Class H. So why are you not competing? You're gonna miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So why are you not competing? If you're the contender, if you're the person to beat, why are you not even trying? And so once I made that decision, I was all in. I was 100% on top of it. And I think because I was a little bit busy with the home purchase and stuff, I really couldn't overthink the prep. And I think that actually ended up helping me a lot because I was so busy. A lot of the self-doubt, a lot of the questioning, am I lean enough? Do I have enough muscle? Am I really good enough? I didn't even have time for those thoughts. So I think it put me in a really good headspace mentally going into USAs.
I love that. That's such a good example of how when prep isn't your whole life, and isn't consuming every moment of your life, you're actually able to, I think, have a better prep experience because it's not the only thing that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny. It's like, I just literally didn't have the time to, to question myself. I was like, every night after work, because I was still working too, or, from home, I'd be filling out paperwork for the bank or my loans. And it just, or I was at the gym doing my cardio and then signing the paperwork and then passing out, going to bed. There was no time for self-doubt or anything like that.
So how did it feel when you achieved this big goal of yours that you had for so long?
It felt amazing. It felt so amazing. That weekend, it was honestly so special, so wonderful. I had one of my good friends, Kate Rostad, who's also a competitor, rooming with me at USAs. And we compete in the same class. She's tall too. And because we checked in together, our numbers were back to back. So we were back to back in the lineup and got to kind of hype each other up going on for prejudging and finals. And it was so amazing to have her with me for the weekend. We were both just so positive, so encouraging, in great moods, and just really, really good energy. And then I also made a very good friend who's a body bio teammate of mine. And there was a group of us that we got to go out and eat and celebrate after the show and after I won my pro card. And we went to my favorite place to go after a show, which is BJ's Brew House. Their menu is so deep and they've got those Kazukis.
Yes.
So that's like my go-to spot after a show. And so we went there for dinner. I got my Kazukis and it was such a great, amazing weekend. And even after that, it took me probably a month maybe for it to fully sink in that I had won my pro card. Just so many people reaching out and encouraging me and just having really nice congratulatory things to say. And I think part of it is because my friends and acquaintances or people who follow me on social media, they know how much I wanted this. Like, they know how much I wanted this. They saw the work over the years. And so I think anytime someone is just busting their hump to achieve a goal they have, it's awesome when they accomplish it, right? So I think with anyone in life, right, you've got someone who's working a full-time job and killing it at night trying to get their bachelor's degree or something like that, and then they graduate, like anything like that, it's cool to see. And so I felt just super overwhelmed with the amount of encouragement I got, and it really did take a while for it to sink in because it was something I dreamed about since probably 2013, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
So having a goal for like 7 years and then having it come true, it felt incredible.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, like you said, it's with anything in life, when you set your sights on something and it comes into reality, it's extremely rewarding. And actually, that leads me to wonder, was it what you hoped for or expected when you ended up going and making your pro debut?
My pro debut was awesome. I think, unfortunately, for a few different reasons, this prep was not as positive and happy, and I don't know, just what my USA's prep in 2020 was. So first of all, I started my prep for my pro debut in April. So first of all, it was a short prep, and I kind of thought maybe I needed more time because again, my feedback is always get bigger. And so I had this feeling in my gut, okay, I'm not going to be big enough for the pro stage. I know what tall competitors look like. I know what, for example, someone like Masa, she's done very well at the pro level. She is about 5'11". I know how full she looks. So I kind of knew in my gut, I'm probably not going to be big enough. But Kim is really smart. He's very strategic and he's super positive and encouraging. And so his thought with doing a July show, and originally we were even thinking earlier, we're possibly even thinking May, but he said, you know what, you need to get out on stage. We have no idea what you look like next to these little shorties. So we need to know if you're too small, too big, or just right. And just kind of see how you do and get some feedback, rip the Band-Aid off, get yourself out there. And so I'm glad that I did that because I know a lot of girls will stress themselves out or delay their pro debut because they get consumed with some of this self-doubt or internal pressure and things like that. But I started the prep in April, and in May, I sprained my left ankle pretty badly. So I was only about 4 weeks into my prep, still had about 8 to go. And I had this pretty badly sprained ankle. I couldn't, the day I did it, I couldn't walk on it. And it really impacted a lot. I couldn't do cardio the same way. I was doing bike for a long time, which is not the same amount of calories burned as a Stairmaster. Yeah. It's also very quad dominant. So with my cardio and everything, I want to be really intentional. I'm hitting my hamstrings, I'm hitting my glutes. We're bringing out those tie-ins really nicely. The bike is not going to do that, unfortunately. So that, and then at the pro level, you need to be good at posing. You need to be not only good, you need to be great at it if you want to do well. And so I couldn't even pose in my heels. I couldn't walk around in heels for about 6 to 8 weeks. Wow. So it definitely impacted me physically and mentally just to push through that. I didn't really want to quit or delay it or anything. I definitely was very, very motivated to move forward, to stick with the original plan. But to say that didn't affect me would be lying. It definitely made the prep a lot more challenging. And then at the same time too, kind of strangely, my mom also, at her home in Michigan, she fell down the basement set of stairs going to do the laundry. It's an older house with like no railing and concrete stairs, and she shattered her ankle. Oh my! And so it was very bizarre in some ways because it happened only a few weeks apart. And so in the background, my mom is having surgeries and we're going through all this. So it was a different prep. It wasn't the same feeling I had for USAs. And I think I learned a lot this year. So the pro debut was still amazing. Like, don't get me wrong. So my pro debut was Muscle Contest Patriots Challenge in July in Vegas. And I had a bunch of my Body by O teammates there competing with me. Ariel, who's now an Olympian, that was her pro debut as well. There were several others competing that day too. And it was a pretty big show, and it was very competitive. You had Ashley Kay in the show. You had Lexus, who's an Olympian, Lucia, another Body by O teammate of mine, who she did amazing this year, placed top 10 at Olympia. And so it was very exciting and very fun. And when the music that Muscle Contest plays, if you've been to their show or you've seen their show, they play this certain music when the pros come on. And that music came on right about as we're all lined up. And it hit me so hard that, oh my gosh, this time the music is for me. Holy cow. This time the music is like music for the pros. This is me. This is my show. This is my turn. So getting out on stage, despite the sprained ankle, everything, it felt great. I felt like I did a really good job with my routine. I didn't place how I wanted to. I was kind of in the middle of third call outs, but like I said, it was a very competitive show. And in the feedback I got this year too, is really a lot of work still needs to happen on my physique. I need the time that I'm taking right now in off season to build and to come back more competitive. So, overall, really, really happy with it. I had Lena, Lupe, several other of my prep girls. They road tripped it from California to Vegas to come watch me. And it felt really, really nice. I felt very supported. I had a couple other girlfriends who came to Vegas with me. So it it felt awesome. Obviously would have loved to place better, but improvement is the name of the game. So I'm not done yet. I'll be back for more. Just need a little break to improve.
I love that. And you are a very, very positive representation of improvement. I mean, you have gone from your first show in 2017 being 125, 128 pounds to being 147 pounds, with now you're saying room to grow more. And I think a lot of people run from weight gain, even in the pursuit of building muscle. So can you talk to us about your approach to making these improvements that you now need to make, and how you've been able to do it in the past as well?
Yeah, that's definitely an important topic for bikini competitors. I think when I first started my off seasons earlier in my competition history, I feel like right now there's there's maybe more messaging that bikini competitors don't need to bulk, or you don't need to gain weight to gain muscle. And to some extent it's true, but it's also a little bit misleading. And I think a few years ago, the messaging was more like, okay, you need to gain muscle. It's bulking season. You got to gain weight, get comfortable with your body. And I'm also not the type of person just genetically and metabolically where I just never look that out of shape, or that I'm never really, I shouldn't say never, but it would be really hard for my body to look overweight or to look heavy or to look out of shape, just given that I'm 6 feet tall. Like I would have to weigh so much, and I'm naturally an ectomorph. So my body's tendency is to drop weight and not to gain weight. So I've got to work really hard to gain muscle. And so I think right out of the gate, I just kind of accepted the fact, like, okay, Laura, you're going to gain weight. You're probably going to gain some body fat. You're just going to need to accept it if you want to improve. And my coach at the time, he was feeding me a lot of food. I think we got my calories up my first off season to like 3,000 or 4,000.
Amazing.
Which was at the time, it was definitely a surplus. And I struggled to eat that when I was at that point. But looking back, it's so funny. After my first show, I didn't meet with him until maybe 2 weeks after the show. We used to do these in-person check-ins. And what do most people do after a show, right? They go ham, they eat everything. Mm-hmm. They might go binge, they might gain some weight or rebound. Since we hadn't met, innocent little Laura was like, oh, I guess I just keep on my meal plan. So I was eating my, little 1,300 calorie, 1,100 calorie meal plan. And I'd let myself maybe have some treats or whatever, but I was like, oh, well, I'm meeting with my coach in 2 weeks, so I need to keep it tight. And I show up 2 weeks after the show, and he's like, what did you do? And I'm like, I'm on my meal plan. What are you talking about? And he's like, you look like you're ready to get on stage. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't know what we were doing. So I just stuck with it. And it cracks me up now. But I reverse dieted super, super smartly, because I just was really on point. I wanted to do my best job. And so basically each check-in every 2 weeks, he'd up my macros, he'd drop my cardio, and I just stuck with that. And so, yeah, I gained some body fat because the calories got really high, but nothing unreasonable. I think when I started my first prep, I was in the low 140s. And I think that's about where I was my first off season. Maybe I got as high as like high 140s or low 150s. And one thing I've had to figure out along the way too, is because I've still struggled with feeling good in my body at a heavier weight. I think all of us, women and men competitors, we feel that way at times. Mm-hmm. But you can't live in a body you hate 24/7. That's just not going to work, right? So it got to the point where I just sort of realized you got to be happy with both. You can't just be happy with stage lean, or you're going to be miserable. And unfortunately, as you know too, a lot of competitors unfortunately fall into that thought pattern. They subscribe to that, and it drives them crazy, because they're just constantly feeling like they're not good enough. Mm-hmm. They're not happy with how they look. They're fat, whatever words you want to use, unless they're stage lean. But we know that's not a maintainable look year round for 99+% of people. That's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized, okay, I've got to learn to embrace the thicker season or the off-season body too. And so I spent more time and energy figuring out how to dress in a way that I liked and appreciating the things that I did like about my body. I liked that my butt was bigger. I liked that my boob, you gained body fat back. My boobs got bigger. I liked that. I liked feeling a little more feminine, a little more curvy. Even if I did weigh more, or even if I did, not feel 100% confident about how flat my tummy was, I still felt good with my body. I tried to appreciate the good things, and I was training really, really hard to make improvement. So even with a little bit of body fat, I still felt really good about how I was looking. And, and if I had days where I wasn't feeling 100% confident, I feel like you got to remind yourself that you have those days when you're on prep too. We're always going to try to pick ourselves apart for something.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of learning to let that go a little bit, or as much as possible, because otherwise you really will just drive yourself crazy and be miserable 24/7.
Absolutely. And we could, as competitors, spend the whole day picking our bodies apart because we're literally focused every day on building a better body, on a better physique, meeting criteria, and then hoping that one moment on stage that we've proven ourselves to be better, rather than living each day being proud of what we're building or how far we've come or our commitments to ourselves.
Yeah. And there's more to life than just how your body looks. So, so I've always tried to have a really healthy mentality with my body, with food. And if I feel like competing or anything is affecting that in a negative way, I try to fix it. So that's always been really important to me. And I think I've always had a really long-term vision. I knew that right out of the gate, I wasn't ready to turn pro. The more I competed, the more I realized, oh, okay, here's what it takes to turn pro. Here's where I'm at, and have a realistic assessment of myself. So I knew this is going to be a long process. So let's not be overly critical. Let's do our best, train hard, enjoy life, but also appreciate yourself and love yourself, whatever phase you're in, because this is not going to be an overnight journey. This is going to be years in the making, and I've still got more to go. So just finding that appreciation and that self-love, I think it's really important as a competitor, especially because it is such a mental game that we're playing.
Exactly. And how can we progress if we are spending all our time in a critical mentality? It creates a very negative energy. And if you're stressing about it all the time, obviously that's not going to have a positive impact on your physique. And I know from my own personal journey, if I was judgmental of my body so much post-show, I would end up self-sabotaging because I'm like, well, I'm already so far gone. And I have gotten rid of that mentality with a good amount of discipline and work on myself for that. But I know that this is not uncommon for competitors where, okay, you look a little bloated because you didn't maybe go perfect or to expectation post show. And now you're judging yourself to the point of saying you're a lost cause and then actually self-sabotaging. So those harsh judgments can really lead to more negative behaviors.
Yeah. And one of the biggest things that I see in fellow competitors is if you're overly critical of yourself or you're overly critical of your physique and off season, a lot of times competitors that may need to put on more size, they're afraid to eat because they think they're overweight. They think they look terrible. They think they're quote unquote fat. And so they won't eat. But if the judge's feedback is get bigger, the reality is you need to eat to get bigger. That's how physiology works. So, so I think that is something that is more common where ladies will be afraid to eat the calories they need to actually make improvements. And so that's where you might have someone who shows up year after year, show after show, kind of looking the same because they're so uncomfortable being anything but stage lean. So yeah,
100%.
maybe that's a self-sabotage too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm so glad that you pointed out that side because I see that a lot, even in pros. I'm like, what's going on here? It's not just amateurs. It's a lot of competitors will get in their head that way. And you specialize in female health when coaching new and natural bikini competitors. And I want to discuss this a bit more because clearly you have a really awesome mentality as a coach, and I want to get more of that from you. So what are some of the things that you incorporate in your work with your athletes that you believe help them to maintain their health?
Good question. There's a lot that we do throughout prep, and especially that post show period to keep them healthy. So I always do weekly check-ins with my girls where we're chatting, we're kind of talking about how they're doing. And if they're feeling like they're spiraling or things like that, those are times where, I might get together with them for a workout if they're local, or we'll have additional phone calls or just text conversations if needed, number one, because I always try to teach and encourage the habits that I feel like keep us both mentally healthy but also physically healthy, right? I don't want to encourage any patterns or behaviors that are some type of disordered eating or creating an unhealthy mentality with our bodies, with food. And unfortunately, prep, it's very intense. It's not for the faint of heart. And so I try to just be as honest and direct with them of, okay, maybe we're at this point, we're really close to a show and we got to push really hard. And it sucks that we've got to get our calories down this low, but there's also a point where I don't really like to bring people below. Like I really never want to bring a girl below 1100 calories a day in their prep. Ideally no lower than 1200. So that's something that I've experienced and many competitors have experienced where they're eating less than 1,000 calories a day in their prep. And if you're at that point where your calories are that low, your fats are extremely low, what happens is your hormones can be completely thrown off because we get our hormones from the dietary fat that we're eating. And if you're eating nothing, that whole system, that whole like endocrine system can essentially just shut off. Mm-hmm. So I'm very mindful with number one, how much I'm feeding my girls. I really don't like to bring anyone. I don't want to bring anyone to 90 minutes of cardio a day, but I have. At this point, I've never had anyone doing 2 hours, nothing like that. And if we're getting to a point in a prep where that's needed, I mean, I'm usually having a conversation with them, first of all, of, okay, is this actually a realistic show date? Mm-hmm. Because I think too, a lot of times where you see that of these extreme low calorie diets or extreme high cardio, sometimes you're not giving yourself the appropriate time to diet. And so you end up crash dieting, which makes it probably more likely on the back end that you're going to rebound or that you're going to have some type of negative after effects after the show. So I'm very intentional, first of all, with how I prep my girls, and I'm very communicative with them. So if I feel like the show date is no longer appropriate, we have that conversation. And if they want to push forward full steam ahead and I kind of explain to them what I think that's going to look like, then okay, sure. But that's actually never really happened. If I bring up to a competitor of mine that I think, okay, this isn't going to be 100% for you, I think we need to reevaluate our timeline. Most of the time, they're very receptive and on board, and they've probably already been having that thought in the back of their mind too, that maybe they weren't verbalizing. Mm. So that's part of it, what actually goes into the prep. I have them take mostly benign things, but things that will help support their bodies during prep. So like probiotics, digestive enzymes, vitamin C as we get closer to help your immune system so you're not getting sick. Typically creatine, very helpful, especially for natural competitors, helps with muscle building, helps with muscle maintenance. And then once we're done with the show, we're reverse dieting immediately. Like the day after the show, they have their reverse diet program in their email, or if I've traveled to the show, I might even physically be with them. So right off the bat, we're shifting gears into that reverse diet and kind of explaining, okay, we don't need to be perfect the way prep kind of requires. If we want to be competitive, if we want to do well in competing, you kind of need to nail 100% of your prep. That's the reality, right?
Yes.
But in a reverse diet, we also don't have to be perfect. Yes, I'm giving you, maybe a meal plan and some macros to follow, and we're dropping the cardio. But if we goof up, all is not lost. The world's not ending. We're not going to die. It's okay. We overate a little. We're hungry maybe. Okay, we overate. Let's go to the gym the next day and let's train really hard. Let's not starve ourselves for the whole day. That's not going to help you. But just go train really hard and make sure you're getting your water in. Make sure, if you are feeling really, really hungry, like go have some extra chicken and rice and broccoli rather than binging on a pizza. If you're truly hungry, go eat as much real food as you need to feel full. Like that's a much better for you physically and mentally, because that can also wear on us as competitors, is that chronic hunger that many of us get, and we have to fight through and we have to push through. And when you're done with your show, it's hard to keep fighting that. So I've been there myself. And so I understand what they're going through. And I think that makes it easier for me to coach them.
Yeah.
And we are more flexible. So even in a prep, if we're doing, say, a meal plan off season, most people prefer to do something macro based, so they can eat the treat foods or the foods that you can't really have on prep, or maybe not going to help you on a prep. So giving that flexibility, giving that freedom, letting them know that, hey, you don't have to be perfect, but do your best, and do your best because you love your body. So the more, and that's really where I try to link it to, is like, let's link this to a positive thing, a positive connotation, a positive reward. By following a reverse diet to the best of our ability, our body and our physique is going to have the very best outcome possible. So do we want to improve our physique? Do we want to feel good about how we look? Do we want to let our metabolism come back up gradually? Yes. And if you love your body, just do your best. I don't expect you to be perfect. I'm not going to be mad at you. I'm not going to talk to you anything but in a nice, tactful, supportive way. But do this and give it your best effort because you love yourself and because you care about the outcome for yourself. And if you can link it to that positive outcome, it helps the competitors so much more to understand and to internalize, okay, there's a reason why I'm still being focused on my diet and on my cardio even after the show.
Exactly. Yes. I absolutely agree with everything you just said, and especially the loving yourself. And something I used to always say when I was doing fitness coaching or personal training, I was always like, if you love your body, then naturally you'll be inspired to take care of her, right? If you don't love your body, it's going to be more difficult to do those things and to feel motivated to do those things or inspired to. And I think that the same thing applies post show, like focusing on really just celebrating your body for all that she's just been through, first of all, like a prep is no easy feat. And then second of all, the fact that now you get to enter this new phase and your body always exists to serve you. Like literally that is your body's job. Like no matter what you do, no matter how much crap you put in your body or how little you move, your body will still work to provide for you and make sure you're okay. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. And I want to expand on what you said too. As a coach, you don't berate or belittle your clients. And I think that is incredibly important and probably not prioritized as much as it should be by most coaches. And I'd say is actually a red flag if you're being berated by your coach, even if you claim to be someone who needs tough love. Like, please, that is a negative reinforcement that's not going to help with the situation. So I think it's awesome that you take that into consideration and really support them.
Yeah, most women respond better to positive reinforcement. So maybe I've never coached a man for a show, but in general, women, we respond to positive reinforcement. So I always try to keep it positive, and it's tough. I mean, unfortunately that happens. A lot of coaches are prepping themselves. Sometimes they're, going through it on prep. And I think that unfortunately can bring it out. And part of it too is I work in a professional environment full time, and I've had to spend a lot of time and effort during my professional career learning how to communicate. So I really do pride myself on that. And I just know that I would also want to be treated and communicated with in a way that's nothing but respectful, tactful, considerate, but also if something needs to be said, I'm gonna be direct and I'm gonna say it, but I'll say it. I always say, I'm gonna be nice, I'm gonna be tactful, but I'm gonna tell you what you need to hear at the same time.
Right. Yeah. And that in itself is an act of love.
I think so.
So you just brought up your career, and this is something I really, really wanted to talk to you about. And I first of all want to start by asking if working in a high demand job and field impacts your mood and energy when you're in prep, or if being in prep impacts your mood and energy at work ever.
Yes to both. The short answer. Absolutely. Yeah, my job, I love the company I work at. I work at a really amazing engineering firm in Irvine, California, and they've won best places to work in Orange County, California for the last 3-4 years.
Wow.
It's a great environment, but that doesn't mean that it also isn't demanding at times, and it can be very stressful to balance everything, especially if work is a bit busier, things like that. Or if even just the simple timing of our day, if I have back-to-back meetings, sometimes I'm stressing to hustle my butt to the break room and go microwave my meals that I brought with me, and just literally get the right meals in and not go 6 hours without eating or something like that. So that can be tough. And at the same time too, when I'm tired and I'm hungry and I'm fatigued from prep, it can be hard to not get snippy or to not have that show in my face and my demeanor, whether I'm working with my coworkers or customers or things like that. It can definitely be tough, but it's also pushed me a lot balancing these two very different things, to be more emotionally intelligent, to maybe grow up or mature a bit more. And I think it's been a great experience for me at the end of the day. I've learned so much from both competing and working in engineering, and then trying to balance the two at the same time. It's really pushed me. And I look back at the work I've done over the years, and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've done all this. So
It's amazing. What is it that, well, I guess I should go back. What did you get your degree in? And what is it like to be a full-time engineer?
yeah, so I should actually clarify. So I'm a project manager. So I'm not actually doing the engineering work, or my office. We actually do quite a bit of programming. The type of engineering is industrial automation. So
That's cool.
automation meaning I'll throw out like robotics or a self-driving car, but we don't do those two things. We do very large scale. So we do industrial automation. So think of a power plant, think of a water treatment plant where you can have one guy sitting at a computer clicking buttons that run an entire power plant. So that's the type of work that we do. So the engineers it's a lot of programming, but it's also, you got to think about the hardware, the actual mechanics and equipment that's physically on site. So I'm a project manager. So it's not so technical. My undergraduate degree is in geoscience within the engineering department. I graduated from Notre Dame, and they kind of had the geology department within civil engineering. And then I had a second major in anthropology. And then I went back to grad school and I got a master's of science in environmental science and a master's of public administration and environmental policy. So at first I was thinking I was going to go to law school, do environmental law. And once I got into grad school, I realized I don't actually want to be a lawyer. I don't want to work in the public sector. I was much preferring my science classes to my government and my policy classes. So that kind of helped direct me in what to do next. And I worked in environmental remediation for about 3 years and was just working some crazy, crazy hours, and switched careers in 2016 and got hired at this firm in Irvine and shifted careers into industrial automation. I had a big learning curve, but they also provided some really amazing training and on the job training for me to get skilled up in that. And yeah, so I've been doing that ever since.
Wow.
So.
That is awesome. And so then how do you go from being a project manager to being a coach, and how do you balance the two along with, of course, your personal life?
Excellent question. So one of the key skills to be a project manager, almost anyone, I'll tell you this, Celeste, almost anyone can be a project manager. It's a great career. There's jobs in every single industry. If you can be very organized, if you are a good communicator, if you like working with people, and if you can stay calm, you'll be a great project manager. So one of the skills that's helped me in competing in work is I'm very organized and I'm very good with time management. And in some ways, I think working at the place that I have for the last several years, they invest a lot in their people. They provide a lot of training. I've learned so much about how to structure my day, about how to go about tasks and workflows and things like that. So I'm being as efficient as possible. I'm very, very organized. My time management is on point. Everything is on a calendar. Everything is tracked. That's even if you're not a project manager, I recommend everyone keep a calendar, keep track of a to-do list, figure out some form to do that, because just to level up whatever you're doing in life, it will help you so tremendously. You'll get so much more done. You'll be so much more on top of the things you need to do in your life, personal and professional. And so what that actually looks like is, yes, everything's on a calendar, but the reality of it is my days are super packed. Most of the time I'm getting up early in the morning. I might have even early morning posing clients. I might be at the gym working out myself before work. I work normal business hours, Monday through Friday. And then in the evenings, I'm either at the gym or working with my clients, and a lot of evenings both. And then it's bedtime and back at it the next day. And so I'm not the type of person that just needs a lot of downtime. I think just something about me, I've always had a really strong work ethic. So I can definitely go a lot longer before I need a break. But I've kind of had to learn the hard way over the years. There have been times where I've burnt the candle at both ends, and that doesn't work out for too long. So balancing it with the personal life, I would say, is the hard part. Prep, clients, work, that stuff all gets done. Having a personal life and balancing time with friends, family, dating, that's been the harder part for me, because my natural tendency is just work. And I've kind of had to figure out through experience, okay, how much personal time do I need? Like, how much time do I need to make sure I'm taking for myself so that I don't, lose my marbles or something like that. So it's challenging, but if you can manage your time, you can do whatever you want. If you can manage your time, if you can be disciplined with your time, you can get so much done. You can be so productive. You'd surprise yourself, but it does take the discipline to keep up with it, and to, when you've scheduled things out, you got to follow through on those commitments. So a lot of it is just really habits and discipline.
I love that. And I really appreciate you sharing some of those things, for time management, having a calendar, making sure that you know what is going on in your day, and then following through on those commitments. I find that people sometimes will jump in like head first to, I'm going to be the best time manager ever. I'm going to start organizing my life and my schedule. And then it blows up in their face and they're like, oh, I failed again. Like, I'm not able to do this, or I let myself down. I think it also depends on the person, because some people are just better at jumping head first. But did you develop this over time, or were you always like this?
I think a little bit of both. I remember keeping a planner and keeping a calendar even in grade school. I think definitely in high school, for sure in college. And at some point I might have been directed to, I might have had some teacher at some point say, okay, you've got to keep a planner. I feel like that may have happened. I just can't remember when. But either way, that's where I started. And yeah, that's, I mean, number one, everyone should keep a planner or calendar, whatever format, paper, Google Calendar, Outlook, whatever works for you. I don't understand when I have a friend who tells me they like don't keep a calendar, it just, I think it breaks my brain. I'm just like, how? Like,
I don't understand that either.
how do you know where to be? Like,
yeah. What do you do with every moment of your day? Like, how do you how do you know? Yeah, exactly. That is, it doesn't compute.
Yeah. So I think I had those tendencies already. So maybe I had the habits for a long time. I've always been an organized person, just with how I like to do things. I like things organized. I like my room, my home clean. I'm that type of person. But also too, the place I work, I think it really has, it's helped me develop so much as a person and professional. Like they even put me in some seminars that I had to do a lot of, honestly, kind of do a lot of battle with inner demons and kind of helping you figure out I went to this one they sent me to that was figuring out subconscious beliefs that you have, and everyone's are different, but mine had to do a lot with confidence. And so I went to that maybe 4 years ago now, and that pretty much changed the trajectory of who I was as a person and who I show up as. So that was huge. There's some other tools and things. There's this best-selling book called Getting Things Done. It's a great read, has a lot of useful tips on just managing a to-do list and managing all these random things life throws at us. Like, you've got a project at work, you got your bills you got to pay each month, you've got stuff you need to do for your prep. How do you manage all this just like influx of things that you're getting every single day to day? So that's something people could go check out. So just over the years, working in engineering, pushing myself, growing as a project manager, I think that's also helped me. And I think it helped my competition career because I keep checklists, I keep calendars for all the stuff I need to do, posing, cardio, workouts with my trainer, my check-ins with Kim. All those things are tracked so that nothing is left unchecked at the end of the week. And that's been a huge tool. And I'm not the only one. A lot of Olympians or other competitors will describe doing the same thing, where they've got some type of checklist or they're tracking all those things. So that's something I'd recommend to anyone. If you're not doing that already and you're a competitor, that will help you level up. If you just do that, if you change nothing else, but you start tracking what you're doing, that will help you take your preps and take yourself as a competitor to the next level.
Love that. So true. I think everyone needs to have automation in their life in some way. And if you can identify patterns, or you can identify like, these are my specific things that always get done week to week, you can, or month to month, or year to year, quarter to quarter, whatever it is, and just start scheduling them, it no longer feels like it's floating around in your head all the time. Instead, it's actually on paper, it's tangible, and you can check it off and you don't have to think about it.
Exactly. Yeah. Spending mental energy is a real thing. So if you can do things that reduce the mental burden or the mental energy you're spending on things, it will help you so much.
Now I'm going to pry a little bit. What were some of the confidence things that you realized and learned about yourself?
It's really just one thing, Celeste. And essentially this seminar, it's a place here in Orange County. They do a lot of personal development. It's everyone supposedly has one underlying subconscious belief, and you spend this weekend figuring out what yours is. And essentially mine boiled down to I'm not good enough. That was my unconscious assumption. Everyone's is different, though that's a common one. And once I knew that, once I verbalized it and it clicked that, oh my gosh, this is this subconscious thought that's in the driver's seat way more than I'm willing to acknowledge, it really put it in the forefront of my mind that I need to work on this. I need to work on my confidence. I need to do the inner work that's required to feel better about myself and to be more confident, because there were a lot of things that I was doing maybe to self-sabotage in some way or another, because I wasn't feeling good and I wasn't feeling confident about myself. And one thing I've learned in my journey, there's a lot more to it than this, but one big thing I've learned is pushing yourself to do things to prove your competency helps increase confidence. So anything you can do where you kind of get outside of your comfort zone, let's say you get a project at work or at school that you're not really sure if you can do. And if you put in the work and you get it done, you're going to feel more confident, which will then increase your confidence. So even just simple things. Number one, work over the years has gotten more challenging. I've managed larger and larger projects over the years. Buying my home, that was actually a huge mental shift too. Like once I bought the home, it had this crazy effect on me. Like, oh my gosh, I don't need a man. Like I don't need anyone. I did this all on my own. Holy crap. So, things like that can do a lot to increase your confidence. And, it's not just flipping a light switch. I'm maybe making it sound more simple than it is, but I think I went to that seminar in maybe 2017, or I think it was 2017. So that's 4 years ago now. And since then I've done a lot of inner work. I've gone to therapy. I've read the personal development books, and I've pushed myself too, to grow and to step outside my comfort zone in a lot of ways. So I look back now and I'm not the same person on the inside or the outside I was just a few years ago.
Amazing. The best part about what you just said is not only did you recognize something that could limit your potential, but you chose to be better for yourself, and you committed to the work required to be better. And this speaks volumes to you as a person, as well as to something that I don't remember where, maybe you mentioned this or that I read it or something, but that you really believe there's no shortcuts to success and nothing will be handed to you. And I was hoping you could share when you established that belief and how it's influenced your behaviors in your life since.
Oh man, that one I think I've had for a long time. There's a number of things I've done in life that have instilled that belief, right? Getting a bachelor's degree, any of us graduating from college, that's a big effort, right? For me, I definitely had a good amount of, I would say, healthy pressure from my parents to do well in school. So even before that, I was applying and getting into Ivy League schools. And I went to Notre Dame, and one of my goals was to graduate with high honors. I did that. It took a lot of work. I busted my hump in college, a lot of late nights, staying up until 2-3 in the morning, studying, even when I was managing my time well and I wasn't procrastinating, just so I could make sure that I got A's on the midterms. And trying to think what else, getting into grad school. Yeah, there's been a number of things over the years I've done that you've got to be able to think long term. Anything really worth having in life, it's probably not going to come easy. Buying a big goal of mine that I said I achieved last year, yes, pro card, amazing. That was a dream for 7 years. And at first, I think when I started competing 2017, I thought, oh, I'll just compete and I can probably turn pro in a year. And once I got into it, I realized, oh, no, more work is required. This is going to be a long process. Like, buckle your seatbelt. We're here for a minute. And even the home purchase. So I live in Southern California. Prices are absolutely bananas here. And I knew as soon as I moved here, I got relocated for work from the Midwest in 2014. As soon as I moved here, I realized how expensive it was to live in Orange County and California in general. And I loved it immediately. I loved living here. I felt so grateful. I felt so excited. And I knew I would have to work hard. I would have to do a good job at my full-time job to get raises every single year. I knew I would have to budget and save my money for years to get a home. It's not going to come easy. When the average price of a home is as high as it is here, it's going to take you time. And unless you're fortunate enough to have, maybe parents that can help you, or you're an extremely, extremely high earner, something like that doesn't come easy. So really, if you look at any of the things in life that we might want to achieve, a college degree, a graduate degree, a home, even something like a long-term relationship, a marriage, things like that, they take work. So if you're looking for shortcuts, you're not going to have lasting success, or you're not going to have success in the same way you're looking for if you're just looking for the easy way out. It's the same thing with people who want to get in shape, right? How many people want a quick fix or want some miracle or silver bullet to lose weight and to get in shape and have the body they want? And that's why we have so many fad diets. That's why there's, so many of these random exercise devices, like those things that you put on your waist that used to do the crunches for you. No, not even waist trainers. Remember,
those like
back in the day,
yeah.
like
you
there's people
and make
always
your muscles flex.
For sure. So people, they just want quick fixes, and I'm very much opposite mentality of that. I think if you want something worth having, you've got to be willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work. And if you can be realistic of what's required and you are there to do 100% of it, most likely you'll be successful. If you're persistent, if you understand what the task at hand is, you'll be successful if you set your mind to it. But if you're looking for the easy way out or quick fix or 30-day shred or whatever it is, like you're not going to get what you want.
And the reason why anyone who follows a quick fix or wants that isn't successful is because they miss out on the opportunity to learn and find sustainable measures or efforts or fulfilling. They don't get the fulfillment that comes from the striving, which is really what leads all humans towards, or has been philosophized to lead humans towards self-actualization. So when you implement a quick fix or someone's selling you a quick fix, really what they're robbing you of is the experience that is what you're actually after.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to miss out on the growth and the things, like you said, what you learn along the way if you're just looking for, I want the shortcut.
Yeah, 100%. I love your mentality, love your approach to life and how you described your coaching principles earlier too. And I want to ask if you can give your best advice for girls who have never competed before but would like to, and then athletes on their road to pro.
Ooh, great question. For girls that have never competed before, I would definitely recommend doing your research, finding a good coach, and understand what you're getting yourself into. So first of all, understanding what the prep entails, making sure you understand the direction and plan that the coach is going to give you. I also unfortunately, I see a lot of new competitors getting pushed into taking a lot of like chemicals or maybe things that they don't even understand what they are. I'm personally not a fan of that. I think for someone who's never competed before, you need to know if you even like competing before you even consider something like that. And I think it's kind of unfortunate what's going on. So I think first-time competitors, you just got to really do your research, know what you're signing up for, know that you have a good coach, and keep your health in mind. And for athletes that are chasing their pro card, you got to kind of like live, eat, breathe it, and be ready and willing to do 100% of what it takes. So that means no shortcuts on the cardio, the meal plan, the posing. You kind of just have to live and breathe it. And you've also got to be really realistic with yourself. So if you can't be objective with where you're at and where you need to go to get that pro card, it's going to be very difficult for you. If you've got an overly inflated sense of self, if you feel like you already deserve a pro card, but maybe in reality your physique's not there, it's going to be very difficult for you to push yourself and to get to that point. So be humble, seek feedback, obviously constructive criticism, things like that. And just make sure you're giving it your 100%, whether you're in prep or you're in off season. In off season, hit those macros, follow whatever type of meal plan you have from your coach, or maybe you've designed for yourself. Don't skip the workouts. It's not just prep that matters, and be willing to think long-term, be patient. Don't expect that it's going to come overnight.
I love that. Great advice. And I really appreciate you saying all of that too, and just sharing so much of your experiences with us and knowledge. And I want people to be able to connect with you, continue this conversation, reach out, inquire about coaching as well, whether that's posing or prep. So can you let everybody know how they can do that?
Absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram at Laura_IFBB Pro. And I also, so on Instagram, you can apply, or you can also DM me. That works too. And then I also have a podcast, Celeste. Maybe at some point you could come on and be a guest of mine. And that's
yes.
It's called Bikini Things. So obviously competitor focused, fitness focused, and that has an Instagram, bikini_things. But yeah, for coaching, all that, I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. I've got some videos. I do have some vlogs of a few of my shows. So I've got a vlog from when I turned pro, and you just search Laura Moore-Shay on YouTube. And I also have a website that I'm still building it, but it's there, and that's lauramooreshay.com.
Amazing. And I will have all of that in the show notes page. And since we record these episodes so far in advance, you guys make sure you check that out, because I'm sure by then you'll have made even more progress. And I'll make sure all of that's in show notes. So that's always at celestial.fit/podcast. If you guys are listening right away, it'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, scroll down to the category section, because not only are you going to see all the ways to connect with Laura, but you'll also see our full show notes, timestamp. So if you want to go back and hear very specific points she made, those are all timestamped for you, and summary of the show too. So really appreciate you coming on, Laura. Your time was so valuable and appreciated, because everything you shared just was amazing.
Thanks so much for having me, Celeste. This was really nice.
Of course. Yeah, it was so great to talk to you. And I hope everybody listening that you enjoyed this. Definitely tag us as you listen or after with your main takeaways. And hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Make it awesome.